Waiters, what Valentine Day disasters have you witnessed? I served at a Japanese hibachi restaurant and once had a couple come and the dude dumps her after the meal. She then gets up and throws up a trail probably a good 20 feet as she runs to the bathroom. The dude got up and left the girl and I was left to clean the mess. I blew my car's tire and my friend came in to bail me out. We're both straight dudes and forgot it was Valentine's. Decided to have dinner and both were coming from important meetings so had suits on. We didn't catch on until the end on how the entire wait staff thought we were just the cutest gay couple. There was a note in our reservations that it was an engagement. They wanted champagne, a specific seat, bunch of other stuff. The server comes up to the table with something like, so I read we're celebrating an engagement. Congratulations. Confusion from the woman, glaring from the guy. He hadn't proposed yet. She ruined it. These two were on a date and the guy went to go use the bathroom. The girl just up and leaves after he went to the restroom. When the guy came back he sat around for a while until asking his waitress where she went. She replied with saying that she left. The guy then asked the waitress if she would go on a date with him. The waitress said no. They came in at lunch the day after, so it was pretty empty but it was still for a Valentine's Day date. They were both pretty nice at the beginning. The guy asked for a picture and whatnot. As the meal went on, the dude got progressively drunker and by the time I brought the check out, the woman was gone. When the dude gave me his card, he said, "I'll give you a bit of advice. If you're taking a girl out to break up with her, do it at a McDonald's and not an expensive restaurant." Not a waiter, but in my strip club bouncer days we had one of our regulars get suited up and bring flowers in one V-Day to try and woo one of the dancers. It did not work. Pro tip, if every time y'all hang out it involves you giving her money, she is not into you. He proposed. She said no. He cried and tried to change her mind for 20 minutes while she sat there stony-faced. She finally got up and walked out. He paid and left in tears. I was a delivery driver for a fruit bouquet company and I had 2 arrangements from the same guy. Routes were made for me and the truck was loaded so there was no way I could mess this up. Delivered both arrangements to the appropriate address. I headed back to the store to find the store owner and the guy who sent these in an argument. This idiot put the wrong name to the houses. And it was on the card with the arrangement, along with the phone numbers. So both women called each other and then called the guy. He tried to say it was my fault. Then the person who took the order. He ordered it online. All we did was import the order. I hate Valentine's Day because of that place but man was that great. I had a Section 1 V-Day that had a marriage proposal, a 40th anniversary, and a breakup all at the same time. The breakup was the worst. The guy brought his high-class date a gift, a mini ceramic bear holding balloons. He presented it when I was at the table and she looked at it like it was a hot turd. I just knew this was not going to end well. She left at the end of the meal and must have said something because he stayed at the table for another 40 minutes, head down and crying. I felt bad. He saw the celebrations going on at the other tables. A guy did a backflip and asked a girl to be his Valentine. She declined. I walked up to him and asked if he was fine. He said it took him a week to perfect. I was eating in a fine dining establishment, Chili's, several years ago. In the next booth was a really young guy who had a big bunch of roses on the seat next to him. He kept looking at his watch, looking at the roses, and popping open a ring box for a peek at the ring. He did this for a half hour or so. Then began calling and texting someone, presumably his girlfriend, over and over. As we were waiting for our check, he hands my wife the roses, mumbled something, and walked out. Poor guy. Edit. I don't consider Chili's a fine dining experience. My wife and I had done some shopping and stopped off for a burger and beer afterwards. Had a couple sign divorce papers and cry a bunch. A guy proposed to his girlfriend and she said, no. The guy threw his arms up and ran out of the building. Later, while waiting for someone to pick her up, she told us it was completely out of the blue, because they'd only been dating for a few months. Another V-Day. A guy raised a huge fuss over the fact that we wouldn't serve liquor to his underage girlfriend. A 16-year-old boy proposed to a 15-year-old girl with a cheap ring in the whipped cream of her dessert. She said yes. Old man proposed to old woman. He tried to get off the chair to kneel. Tripped and fell and I assume broke something since he couldn't get back up and we had to call an ambulance. My manager had to drive her teeth to the hospital separately because she had taken them out to eat her soup. Lord knows why. And left them on the table in the confusion. Edited to add. I don't know if she said yes. My manager didn't get to see them at the hospital. Only pass on her teeth to the nurse. Thank you kindly for the gold and silver though. Bus boy on Las Vegas Strip. An attempted proposal. Dude tries to set up sign with GS friends for her to show up and see the ring near a fountain. Duck stole the ring. They found it 2 hours later as he dropped in the fountain. She still said yes. Free drinks were given. Back when I served food at one of those super touristy seafood restaurants. I worked a Valentine's Day double shift. For lunch, this younger couple came in celebrating their 1-year anniversary. I offer my congratulations and proceed to do my usual spiel before taking orders. The girl is looking more and more dismayed the longer I talk. Finally I get to the end and ask if there are any allergies. She looks directly at her boyfriend and states, "Yes, I'm allergic to fish and shellfish." Then looks over at me very sad. I made sure every aspect of her meal was fine for her. But it was that look of, "We've been dating a year and he still takes me to a restaurant that could kill me." That really did it for me. Not my table. But back in my Olive Garden days, we had a man who looked to be in his mid-20s tap his empty wine glass with a fork to call for attention of the surrounding strangers, then get down on one knee with silver band in hand, and ask his girlfriend date to accept this promise ring. She looked horrified start to finish. In college I waited tables and Valentine's Day was always a good one in terms of tips. I once saw a couple come in to eat. Halfway through the dinner the man's wife shows up to surprise the couple. The wife took the wine bottle and poured the remnants on the husband's head, took off her ring and told the girlfriend she could have him. He tipped me a $100. Had a man and woman sharing dessert and the man playfully put a bit of the ice cream on her nose. She then did the same and he did it back once more but with a different flavor of ice cream. She flipped out at him because, "You know I like chocolate the most, why would you waste it, you idiot?" In the end she stormed out cause the man couldn't comprehend how much she was blowing up the situation. TLDR. Man put ice cream on woman's nose, she is fine with it the first time. The second time she rages and leaves. I was working as a waitress in a sushi restaurant and Valentine's Day was an all-hands-on-deck shift. This guy the first had just started seeing wanted to go out. But I told him that working in food service, you never get Valentine's Day off and we'd just have to celebrate the day after or the weekend after. Nope. He got so upset that he went and asked a different girl out. Came to the restaurant I worked at on V-Day and sat in my section. He then proceeded to spend the entire evening making a fool out of himself and making his date uncomfortable as he tried to make me jealous. Needless to say we didn't go out again. Ever. I set my hair on fire and spilled a full Stella on a lady. I work in a causal fine dining steakhouse. Luckily for me, the lady I spilled the Stella on was super understanding and her husband said from across the table, "Well now she has to take her pants off." So that could have gone worse for me. Not really much of a disaster. But last year my work called me up. "Hey buddy, we know you're single. Can you come in as an extra shift tonight?" Worked at a chain barbecue restaurant. Was a line cook but could see in the dining room. Had a lady and her kids. Early teens. Come in turn to be seated. She started to freak out. Crying, yelling and left. Turns out the table in the corner was her husband and another lady in a date. Ex-barista here. Hope that is close enough. Some guy on Valentine's Day came in and asked us to write on the cup, "Will you marry me?" It did not go well. She looked at the cup while he went down on one knee. She said nothing, put the cup back down and just walked away shaking her head. He, on the other hand, got pissed and started to rant about how she should have gotten over him sleeping with her sister already. We had to ask him to leave. Edit. Oh, I have a good story if you don't mind me sharing. Not on V-Day though. We had a guy come in and asked us to write, "Will you go to the prom with me?" She said yes so happily. I think they ended up engaged 2 years later since we started to see rings on their fingers. They were lovely regulars and I wish them the best. IDK, but I'll find out Friday cause I work a frocking double, and it's Applebee's. Update. Sorry Reddit. I've been working a shit ton and haven't had a minute to update you guys. So basically, Valentine's Day at Applebee's wasn't much different than any other Friday night working there. But, I will say, a lot of people were stingy as frock with their tips. And I mean a lot of people. Also, there was a couple who dined and dashed. And there was a dude who got stood up. Other than that, it was about as trashy as normal. Happy belated Valentine's Day everybody. Back to work I go. 2 failed marriage proposals on the same Valentine's Day. The first one simply said, "No I can't do this," and walked out. The second one stared like a deer frozen in the headlights for an excruciating 30 seconds before muttering, "Let's talk about this later." They stayed for the rest of their 6-course V-Day special dinner, eating and making painful small talk. Saw a couple have a full-on argument at a restaurant. I wasn't their server but the table was directly in the center of the restaurant and they were certainly loud enough for everyone to hear. My manager kindly asked them to leave and the guy's response was to yell, "I've been wanting to do that sit for 2 years now," and stormed out. A girl that I worked with went to lunch on Valentine's Day at an expensive restaurant her boyfriend had gotten a reservation for. She got dressed up nice was going on about how sure she was that he was going to propose. He broke up with her. I walked up to a table and was about to drop off the bill. Caught the end of, "It's over." Guy looked at me dead in the eye and said to split that frockin' check. Right now. A few years ago, I had finished my shift at a pub I was working at, and sat at the bar with a drink. There were still a few couples sat in the restaurant, but the boss let me clock off early. I had a pint before leaving, and at a table nearby, it sounded like a proposal was about to happen. A few people went quiet listening in. Then, it happened. Guy, "Hannah, will you marry me?" He was kneeled in front of his girlfriend. Her sat down. Girl. "Hannah, who the asterisk is Hannah?" She yelled. Threw her drink at him and walked out. Guy paid and walked out, looking very red. Probably not the kind of story you're looking for, but one Valentine's Day at my restaurant we got totally slammed and the kitchen started melting down. In the middle of dinner service the head chef freaked out, threw a side of salmon at one of the line cooks and walked out. Someone showing up for a date and you both realize about 30 minutes in she ain't coming. Drinks on me, buddy. Small, fine dining restaurant. Man from my table goes to the restroom and is gone for a while. Probably 10 minutes? Which for a restaurant is a while. As I'm passing by the restroom he's all PSSSS, ushering me to the side and hurriedly whispering that he needs to leave through the kitchen because his wife's best friend was sat near he and his date. Who of course as I learned then and there is not his wife. We box the remaining courses up and do a walk of shame through the kitchen. He's pissed. She's crying. All while the rest of us are stifling our laughter. He ended up tipping well on the prix, which was nice. Happened to my poor coworker. A guy and his date came in for Valentine's Day. They had a great time, ate a lot of food, drank a lot of wine, and got along really well with my coworker who was their server. About 2 months later they come back in and request my coworker again, who happily says yes to serving them. He goes up and greets them. The guy introduces his wife to him. And my coworker mentions something about how much he enjoyed serving them on Valentine's Day. They go quiet. Wife gets up and leaves. Guy just lowers his head. Turns out he had brought his mistress in on Valentine's Day, but my coworker didn't realize he was with a different woman this time around so didn't think anything of it. We never saw the guy again. Couples who are close to the spring breakup trying to save everything on one meaningless holiday dinner. You see at least one every year. I waited on one of the owners of the restaurant I was working at with his girlfriend and her tween kids. Kinda weird, but probably didn't get a babysitter. He had been dating this woman for a number of months, but it was his first Valentine's Day on a date that wasn't his wife in decades. I don't think he was ready, but he was there to support the business. He broke down crying during dinner and it was heartbreaking. They left early. Not really a disaster, but this guy came in and said he was waiting for his date. He stayed for 5 hours waiting and she never showed. He eventually ordered for himself and asked that I remove the other glass of water from the table. He said it was their first date. Was a server at a popular seafood chain that isn't very fancy, but when you live in a town like the one I worked in, that sort of place is the nicest place to go for Valentine's Day. Well, the night was incredibly busy when a couple came in. They were upset after waiting 45 minutes for a table, and they were complaining quite a lot. The woman was decked out in a super nice dress and faux fur coat that was actually very realistic. Well, she was sat and served her frozen drink. She goes to lift the glass to her mouth, and inexplicably, the bottom of the cup simply breaks and the drink is spilled all over her dress and nice coat. Was unfortunate. Edit. To everyone asking about the restaurant. Yes, it's the place y'all think it is. Red Lobster is a wild place. My own. When my GF got sick on the train home, 2 guys tried to sexually harass the 2 of us, only to get back to her car at 3:30 a.m. and realize she had no gas. After I managed to drive us home on empty, I saw a note on the dining room table. Apparently, my roommate had been taking the $100 I was giving him each month for rent and using it to pay off his fines and fees from his recent DUI, and hadn't paid the rent for 3 months and we were on the verge of eviction. I worked at a sports bar. Every couple there on Valentine's Day was a divorce waiting to happen. A nice lady brought her kid in for dinner, got seated at a table next to her husband and his mistress. I saw a couple have a full-blown argument in the middle of the restaurant. The woman stood up, took her ring off, threw it at him and walked out. The man continued his meal, had dessert and then paid the bill. Left a pretty big tip for the inconvenience and left. It was my first week serving and I was trying to do everything by the books. This normal-seeming couple is satisfied throughout the meal. I ask if the check would be together or separate. Big mistake. I figured it would be together and go to the gentleman, but not wanting to assume I asked. They say together. NBD. I go get the check and drop it off. Come back and she's writing a paragraph about how I shouldn't have asked. I grab my manager and she stops by the table and crazy lady complains. They leave. The gentleman tips me well and seems embarrassed at the situation. Crazy lady fills out our survey complaining and calls the store 3 times after to complain. I brushed it off because she obviously had insecurity issues, but damn, what a wild ride. I was waiting on a couple in their early 40s on Valentine's Day in an Irish pub. The dude was head to ankles camo and rude. She was decently dressed for a date at the pub and very pleasant. She thanked me for working on Valentine's Day and said I probably have someone I'd rather be with, and he said, PFFF. She's too skinny. Who would want her? I only spoke to her for the rest of the meal. Was the chef at a pretty fancy place. We did 4-course tasting prix, and were always booked to the brim for Valentine's. The owner was out of town and the place was packed during our first seating when the pipes to the apartment above the restaurant burst. Nasty. Cold water rained on everyone and everything. Fire department came. Owner said to give everyone champagne. Clean the place up and keep going. As if anyone wanted to continue their meal soaked through on a cold-ass night in sealing water. I know I'm late, but while working at a sushi bar in college I witnessed a blind Valentine's Day date where the guy who showed up was already the girl's ex-boyfriend. I was the disaster. I was a new server. And horrible. I dumped an entire tray on the floor. My bad. Edit. I'm loving all the servers sharing their stories. For everyone still in the business. May the odds be ever in your favor for Valentine's Day. May your customers tip well and not be as holes. Somewhat related. I'm an RN and previously worked in a jail. We offered free STD testing and treatment. Had one guy get the news that he was positive for gonorrhea and chlamydia on Valentine's. How's that for AV Day? Fortunately, he had a good sense of humor about it. For the unaware, these are both fairly treatable diseases. I work at a brewery per bar. One night a young woman comes in for a first meeting Tinder match. She orders her beer and chats with me a bit. Eventually Home Slice strolls in. He strikes me as a bit of a meathead, but you see lots of people. I try not to judge. They say hello. Officially, meet each other and I ask if I can get him a brew. He orders one. And somehow in the time it takes me to turn around, fill a pint, and set it in front of him, he's already saying, ... So don't ever believe domestic abuse charges. My last 3 exes have all called the police on me. Most people put their best foot forward on a first date. I can only imagine how charming this guy is once you get to know him. Worked at a high-end restaurant in Podunk, Louisiana. This was the spot for LSU alumni and etc. We have a Valentine's Day private party after closing hours. I am bussing the room around 1 a.m. and rich people are throwing down dozens of wine glasses, bottles, food, etc. Well, this one lady was frocked up to the gills and thought it would be smart to pull a tablecloth off a table to look for her. Insert drunken mutter. Before I could stop her, she rips it off. It hits the ground, and glass and soot flies everywhere. She gets on her hands and knees and started frantically looking for her phone she lost in the process while wearing a little white dress. I looked on in horror and amazement. We immediately rounded her up and ended the party. Just wait till Saturday and this question again. The comments will be even more gold. Soho, NYC, V-Day 2009, mid-service. Guy in a cheesy jacket comes in with a full mariachi band, takes a knee in the middle of the restaurant, and proposes to one of the servers with a ring. The entire restaurant is watching, staff and guests alike. She instantly says no, mortified, and leaves the floor sobbing. The band continues to play while he half-hearted pursues her, but is stopped by the manager as he tries to enter the kitchen after her. He exits shamefully while the band plays him off. Band sticks around for beers at the bar. Turns out he was her ex. They hadn't spoken in over a year and this was his attempt to win her back. We got drinks and laughed about it after service, and she banged the bartender later. Mid-1980s. A couple enjoyed a meal at a two-top that I waited on. All was well. But midway through dinner the area began to smell like someone farted. It did not go away. The man complained, and I apologized, noting that it wasn't the restaurant and there was little I could do. The woman tried to calm the man down, but he asked for the check early, demanded a discount, which we gave him, and stiffed me on the tip. They left. The woman left a skid mark of sit on her chair. Edit. Spelling. My friend and her husband would fake a proposal every year on Valentine's Day for free food. Turns out one of the people working that day also worked last Valentine's Day. She shut down the shenanigans and they got kicked out. They moved to a new restaurant and continued the tradition the next year. This couple was double dating and waiting for the other couple. We were running 1 pound lobster tail special, and we ran out. The wife went ape sit on me, furious about the whole situation. Their friends wind up bailing on them, and the wife gets more angry. Husband takes my GM to the side to apologize for her and they decide to leave and gives my GM $40 to give to me. Late night at a fast casual chain known for being trashy. Two booths right next to each other. I guess one both got into an argument and she threw her alcoholic drink on her man. It hit the lady behind her just trying to enjoy her late night Valentine's dinner with her husband. Not a waiter, but I work in a grocery store. Every year, without fail, hundreds of men flock to the store at 9:59 p.m. expecting to get a bouquet of flowers arranged, or complain why we don't have any more romantic Valentine's Day cards. There's also the men that forget to get their side pieces something nice. That's a whole different ordeal. Not a waiter, but a chef at a small-ish restaurant. We were really busy, duh. Last year and I was out helping bus some tables real quick. I saw a guy and gal sit down. They asked for water so I got it for them. I came back and I heard the guy say, "So why the frock do you have Tinder on your phone?" Went back to the kitchen. My phone manager asked me what happened and I said, "What are you talking about?" I guess the girl left quickly while crying and the guy followed shortly after. They left $2 for the water, so that was nice. Oh, man, back in the day I was a waitress at Waffle House. We had, I kid you not, Valentine's Day reservations. It was unbelievable how many people chose to partake in this. Anyway, my 7:00 table comes in, and it's a couple maybe in their 60s. His wife sits at the table in a huff, with the most miserable scowl on her face, and says loud enough for all of the other tables to hear, "I can't fucking believe you brought me to a goddamn Waffle House for a steak dinner on Valentine's Day." She proceeded to be the most bitter and rude customer I've served, and I felt so badly for her husband. He just thought it'd be cute. Valentine's Day is just another day, folks. Don't make your significant other feel pressured to make grand gestures. Each day with them should be the real gift. Worked at a fine dining establishments in the city. Valentine's Day is usually booked solid. That day was 25°C out and for some reason our heating didn't work. The whole floor. Some 80-odd people, and as far as I know 100 plus upstairs too were dining in their winter jackets. We had to close the main doors to keep the heat in. It was a brutal night to be serving. People were cordial despite their disappointment. A couple came into the restaurant I work in last year. They split a meal and looked happy enough. Halfway through their meal I noticed the guy seems upset. He's speaking louder and faster and the girl seems a little shocked. The guy starts screaming about sugar, and how it's the biggest problem of the 21st century. How her not caring is gonna get all of us killed and it's her fault. There was a waiter trying to get involved at this point and asking him to stop screaming. The girl was so embarrassed she just left in a hurry. The guy ran out after her without paying the bill. He came early next day. Really embarrassed. Paid the bill, said sorry under his breath and left. Never seen either of them again. My then partner, a chef, decided to cook me a romantic dinner. Long story short, the night ended with me in hospital because we set my hand on fire. First and only time in 10 years that we celebrated V-Day. This thread could get sad fast, so I'll give a success story. Was working backline at an Arby's on Valentine's Day. It's 8 o'clock, store's empty. One couple comes in, orders their food. I just finish making it when I see the guy get down on his knee and propose with a packet of horsey sauce. She says yes. I tell my manager and give them a free cookie because accepting a proposal done by Condiments Inn and Arby's is true love. This probably won't be seen, but I used to serve champagne for Cupid capsules on the London Eye. Got to the top with the couple. He got down on one knee and gave a long speech. She said no. Immediately, she starts crying. Unfortunately, that's the only time other capsules can see into yours. The capsules either side burst into visible applause. We had 15 more agonizing minutes until we got back to the platform. My mate broke up with his girlfriend to marry someone else. That was a yikes. Also thought the breakup dinner was gonna be the engagement because it was coming close to their 5-year anniversary. He was a dig. When do the waitresses have their Valentine's night out? Not waiter, but the couple next to my fiance and I started ordering only to realize it was an expensive prefixed menu. They had planned to order off the normal menu and split the meal. The waitstaff was pissed. It was rough. When I asked a drunk guy how he wanted his steak cooked, he said, "I like it raw," and licked his lips at me. She left. He fell asleep at the table. It was awkward. Worked at a medium-level chain restaurant, nothing fancy, but the prices were pretty high for what it was. Often we'd get kids taking their mom or grandma or something out for Valentine's Day since it was the fanciest place they could think of and still get a pizza. I once was paid the maybe $70 to $80 entire bill in stacks of quarters made into little towers all over the table. I don't think I got much of a tip on that one. Maybe not. Disaster, but older man sat down with balloons and flowers. He asks if he could wait for his dates to arrive before he orders. Sure. No problem. 10 minutes later I check back. Still no one else at the table. He insists they'll be there soon. Another 10 minutes go by, nobody there. Finally, after 45 minutes or so, I check back to find he is holding back tears. I'm thinking someone stood him up. Nope. He explains to me how he had cheated on his wife and this was his last effort to reconcile with his adult daughters, the dates he was waiting on. Then, he further explains that his mistress also left him when she found out he was married. Karma's a breach. Bud. He left me the flowers though. Worked in a small open kitchen with a 4-top burner and pasta warmer. Had 15 seats around the bar. Listened to a couple chat up the girl next to them. She had gotten stood up and it was a first date. They ended up having dinner with her and a couple of bottles of wine. I could hear every conversation even though people didn't think I could. 100% heard them ask her over for a threesome and her blurt out, "Hell frocking yes," before he even finished asking. As they were saying their goodbyes I gave him a wink and he gave me the biggest sit-eating grin I've ever seen. They all three were stupid attractive. I think about them often. Not a waiter, but a story worth sharing nonetheless. A friend of mine went on a date with this girl once or twice, and then invited her to a nice Valentine date as well. He had everything set up perfectly. He called her 4 times. Texted her several times and waited for too long. Eventually, after finishing half of the wine bottle by himself, smoking a pack of cigarettes and looking like crap from stress, disappointment, being played, sweating and waiting, he went home. The girl said that she had an emergency and she did not receive any of the texts or calls. However, in a photo posted in Instagram during Valentine's Day, she was shown to have gone out to a concert or something like that, probably with another guy, so she was clearly lying about it. Frocking brutal. Oh Jesus. They're freaking all disasters. In my city, where service industry and tourism are the top industry in town, we consider Valentine's and Mother's Day to be amateur dining night. Every single party thinks they are the most special. They all want extra anything because they want their night to be magical. They do not give a shit that it's literally the busiest night of the year in absolutely every restaurant. How dare you tell me there's an hour-long wait? It's Valentine's Day and we need to be seated. Not a waiter, but we were the patrons. My now wife and I were on keto during our first Valentine's Day. We decided that keto candy and brownies would be romantic and still in alignment with our diet. We both politely excused ourselves to the bathroom several times so as to not try to gross each other out. That politeness quickly went away as we both found ourselves running for the bathroom without trying to hide the sweat accumulating on our brows. It was not only our first Valentine's Day, but the first time we spent the night taking turns throwing up, having violent diarrhea in my 1-bathroom apartment.